Hi everyone, this is Takatoshi Shibayama, the host of the Future Design Podcast. This podcast looks to empower listeners with perspectives on how we can challenge the social norm and evolve with better understanding of philosophy, spirituality, and ethics. Empowered individuals can have much stronger voice and influence in bringing about revolutionary changes in the world, whether you're building businesses or technologies. My guests and I speak about topics that are commonly accepted in the world today that's not working anymore, and rebuild our values so that we can create a better future. In this episode, I speak with Jonathan Troen, a life mastery coach who turned himself around from being an unhappy but wealthy TV producer. He runs a life coaching and yoga practice in Austin, Texas. We talk about what it means to be successful. I mention quite often about not tying financial success to life success, and we really deep dive into what that means to be successful. If we can come to an agreement with ourselves of what that looks to us, we can rebuild our businesses, our attitude to work and life with a much clearer focus, energy, and drive. So without further ado, here is Jonathan Troen.
Future Design Podcast.
Thank you, Jonathan Troen, for being on our Future Design Podcast. I'm super excited to have you on our conversation.
So happy to be here. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. It's completely my pleasure. So before we talk about what our topic is about, finding a new pathway to success, which is I think is really important that people really understand, and this is the overarching theme about Future Design Podcast, is about redefining what success is. What is your journey in life? What is the most important part of your life in building businesses or technologies, or even thinking about how to be a better person in general? But before we go into that topic, could you tell the audience for us, who is Jonathan Troen?
Wow. Who is Jonathan Troen? Well, I'll share it this way because I just did a video the other day on it. And the video, someone asked me what my favorite quote was. And it changed. Like, you know, I was in the music business for 20 years. And, you know, your favorite song changes over time. So my favorite quote changes over time. But my favorite quote right now is simply, I am. And, you know, if you're listening, watching this, really just pause and say, I am, without anything after it. And when you do that, when you strip the labels away, it gives space for it. You can't put words into who you really are on the inside, beyond the labels. Yes, there's love, there's kindness, and we have the labels. So I'm an entrepreneur. I run the Self-Love Revolution. I created that. I have a mindfulness center here where I live in Austin, Texas. I'm a father. You know, I can put all these labels on me. I am a yoga teacher. But these are all labels and masks that we put on for the outside world. It's not who I am because, well, I wasn't always a yoga teacher. I wasn't always an entrepreneur. I wasn't always a dad. Was I not Jonathan Troen then? One day I might not be an entrepreneur. I don't know what I'll do next year. Am I going to continue this? Will I decide to do something else? Will I retire? Will I create something brand new? I don't know if I'll have the mindfulness center here in 20 years. So the who is much deeper. We've begun to equate that with what we do and how we show up for other people. But for me, who is Jonathan Troen? I don't know. I am. And there is so much freedom in that one simple statement.
Certainly true. And I think a lot of people, as you say, put labels on themselves because they can't really describe who they are. They don't know exactly who they are because it's easier to say, I'm a yoga teacher, I'm an entrepreneur, I am a pilot, whatever they may be, because they don't have to think about deep down who actually they've become. Maybe they knew a little bit about who they were when they were younger, but as we grow older, I think society puts us in these kind of categories of who you are, defining yourself amongst each other to say, oh, I am a pilot, I am a yoga teacher, to define or I would say mask who we really are. But I think what we need to do is start asking ourselves who I am, because that really defines what you really want out of life.
Yeah, and when we put those labels on, it makes it really hard to change as well. So I spent 20 years in Los Angeles, in Hollywood, in the music business and in the entertainment television business. And, so I was producing TV shows. Towards the end, I was more in the music side first, then I started producing television shows. So, who are you? Well, at that time, I'm a TV producer. Now, when I left that world, because it wasn't filling me up anymore, and people would say, you meet people, what do you do? And even the who are you and what you do, they seem like the same question. And for a while, until I figured out this new way of living and this new path and these new definitions of success, I didn't know how to answer that. I didn't know who I was because I wasn't doing that anymore, but I hadn't figured out what was next. So I was in this in-between world. I didn't know what I did. I didn't know who I was. And actually meeting people was really uncomfortable because those are the first things people ask. And it's like, I don't know. Well, I used to. So then you label yourself, well, I used to blah, blah, blah. I used to produce these TV shows. Well, what about now? Well, now I'm hanging out talking to you, and that's all I got. So and people, like I know a lot, I said the same thing before I left the business. It was, well, I don't know how to do anything else. What would I do? And I know a lot of people that are stuck in whatever industry they're in. I know people in the entertainment business I know a lot of people that love it, and I know people that want out, and I know people across industries that want to do something different, but they're so identified with it. They go, I don't know what else I would do. I'm not happy, but I don't know what else to do. And that's where we need to let go of the labels so that what we want to do can bubble up from within instead of having everyone else tell us what we should want to be, want to do, all of that.
Yeah, certainly true. And also, when you tell people what profession you're in, everybody assumes who you are, because that word, I am a yoga teacher, I am a TV producer, has different meanings to a lot of people. I used to be a hedge fund manager with $1 billion of funds, and people will look at me and say, oh, wow, you're a hedge fund manager, you're so cool, this and that. But now I'm in financial services in the cryptocurrency space. Now that gives a very different impression to other people as well. So does that impression change who I really am? No, it doesn't. I'm the same person as the person that was running $1 billion hedge fund, and I'm exactly the same person that is in the financial services space in the cryptocurrency world. I am the same exact person, but people don't know who I am because all they see is those labels. So exactly. when I talk to people, I like to talk about other things than my profession. I want to talk about the music that I love. I want to talk about the books that I've read before. I like to talk about spirituality. I like to talk about podcasts, whatever they may be. But that gives a completely different impression to other people. So I think people should be able to express themselves through their, personal likings and not kind of strap themselves on to like, oh, because I'm a cryptocurrency guy, I should be talking about cryptocurrency and making people think that I'm this kind of radical guy in finance or something, right? And I think more and more people should be more open about themselves.
I'd rather know why somebody does what they do than what they do. And in fact, I'd rather not even know what you do, but you tell me why you're doing it. Because that will tell me so much more about you, right? So, why are you in the cryptocurrency world? Versus, and I wish I could erase the cryptocurrency, not that it matters, right? But it does, you're right. Immediately I go, oh, and I got a lot of friends in the cryptocurrency space who were in it way early on. Unfortunately, I didn't understand it back then, so so they left me in the dust there. But yeah, it's all about why we do what we do. But most people don't go to that question. It's what do you do? And then we make up all the stories, like you said, and we never get to that second question. Why do you do it?
Yeah, exactly. And then I think the why we do certain things is all about what we're talking about in this future design podcast as well. Why are we doing this? It's not about the how or, the labels that you want to put on ourselves. We're always trying to think deep about why we're doing things and how does that affect the world that we live in, and how is that for the betterment of society, betterment of all sentient beings or the earth, whatever that may be, to them. And that's kind of what I wanted to dig into with you, because you talk about self-love, you talk about a new pathway to success. And I think we all think about success in terms of financial success. And I think that is we've been put on this path of kind of this neoliberalism kind of ideas that were implanted in us in the 80s, that we have to be, self-serving. You got to pursue our self-interest. You got to be happy for yourself. And what is that going to be? Is that going to be having a big house, having a nice car? Is that what you really want? And I think if you're running a country, yeah, maybe you're supposed to make people think that way because it helps your GDP. It helps the growth of the economy so that everybody can prosper. You can show the other worlds that you're the hegemony of this world or something like that. And then you could go to different countries and consume, this and that, and you could travel all the world. I mean, that makes you think that is actually success. But is that really serving your own real, Jonathan Troen's pursuit of your life? I don't think we think about that too much, and it's just easy to say, I just want all these material things.
Yeah, look, you get what you measure. And look, even GDP, I just, okay, honestly, I think it's the stupidest thing in the world that we are rating our country based on this gross domestic product. What does that even mean? Like most people don't really even understand what those words mean. So if we make more money, which by the way, the GDP doesn't track how that money is dispersed among people. It's just the total of it. So how many people are enjoying it? Let's really, that's the reality too. But look, I know, again, I spent 20 years in LA, spent 20 years in Hollywood. I know a lot of rich people. I know a lot of poor people too. So just to be clear, and I can tell you, I know a lot of rich people that are happy. I know a lot of rich people that are unhappy. I know a lot of poor people that are happy. I know a lot of poor people that are unhappy. The money has nothing to do with it. Now, if you really have nothing, yes, it means something. If you can't afford to have a roof over your head and food, that changes the happiness spectrum. But once you reach a certain level, once you have the roof over your head and you have food on your plate, the difference between 100,000 and 100 million in terms of happiness, joy in life, how you show up in the world, there's not much difference. So that's where it gets to what you were talking about before. How do we define success? Is it the money in your bank? Most people want the money in the bank. Look, I've coached a lot of people. They want the money in the bank so they can experience freedom and they can experience happiness. That's why most people want that money in the bank. And some people think it will get them the relationship. If they have the money in the bank, then they can have the right relationship. Of course, what's the relationship for? It's to bring them happiness. But we know that's not true because we see, not to be a complete downer, but we see really wealthy people taking their own lives. And when it gets taken away, like when we had the crash of 2000 or 2008, we had people jumping out of windows because of these numbers. It's not even real money anymore. It's just numbers online, zeros and ones in some computer. We don't even carry around cash anymore. What does it even mean? And yet people would jump out of windows because the numbers on their computer screen weren't what they were supposed to be, in their identity, to go what we were talking about before, was so wrapped up in it. So what is success? Is success money in the bank without the joy to go along with it? Because if you're working so hard to make all that money so you can be happy, and then you're not, because a lot of people get trapped by that money. Well, what will happen if it's gone? I don't know. Is that success? I thought it was, believe me, when I was in LA, I thought it was. I lived 3 blocks from the beach, watched the sunset out of my window. I could walk to the beach, have my feet in the sand in 10 minutes, and I was sitting there watching the sunset over the ocean. It was a glorious life. And those moments were wonderful. But the inner joy, it wasn't there, because no matter how successful I was still comparing myself to other people. And therefore I had this judgment inside. So it didn't matter how much money was in the bank. It didn't matter, who I interviewed that day, what stars I was talking to. None of that mattered when I got in a room by myself and could just tell myself, what a pathetic, not good enough person I was, even though everybody on the outside was looking at me saying, I can't believe you're doing these things. And I'm like, yeah. And then I go alone, I'm like, yeah. So what is success? Is it from the outsiders or from the inside? I have the money. I'm good with that. I love it. You can do more good things if you have money. But if you think that's going to bring you happiness, it's already been proven time and time again that that's not the case. You have to be happy on the journey to the money. Then when you get the money, you'll be happy.
I used to work in finance. I started off in investment banks, and I kind of climbed up the ladder there. I moved on to hedge funds. I was working for a hedge fund, so I thought, wow, I kind of stepped up. I'm out of the investment banking world. I'm above them now. I'm working for a hedge fund, and I thought I'm going to be happy. And I was working there, not very happy. So I thought, maybe if I have my own hedge fund and I have all this money, then I'm going to be more happy. So, I launched a hedge fund. I raised, a lot of money, grew that business into $1 billion, and I'm still not happy. I was actually even less happy than before. I was being grouchy. I was kind of being mean towards my kids. I'm like, this is not happy at all. This sucks. It completely sucks. And that's kind of when I thought, all this, thinking about society's view on me of what success is not really bringing me any happiness at all. Actually, it's rewinding it. Maybe I was more happy when I started off working in investment banking because I had less responsibilities and I could do whatever I want and make sure I do my job and I just show up and make my numbers. And then that's kind of why I this is not the only reason, but this is definitely one of the reasons why I quit. But I also see in this entrepreneurship world, everybody, these CEOs becoming like really, extremely like very antisocial behaviors, being such a, I guess in a simplified word, they're mean people until they get to the top, and all of a sudden they repent and say, oh, you know what I've done is wrong. Follow your passion, do what you love. And I kind of see that and I kind of reflect that onto me and said, it's the same thing, but at the same time, if you're not making that money and you're watching these guys being ruthless all the way to the top and they're made all this money and they all suddenly repent and say, be a nice person, I'll be saying, what the heck are you talking about? Like, what are you repenting now? And it kind of really pissed me off at the same time as well. I don't know if you have an opinion about that, because there's so many people like that.
Here's the thing. It's what we teach. And I don't know about Singapore, right? So I haven't been there. But I can tell you here in the United States, it's what we teach. So I don't approve of it, but I don't necessarily blame them either. Because we go to school and we're taught that everybody around us in this classroom are our competitors. That someone's going to rise to the top. And someone will be number 2 and 3. And who's going to rise to the top? As opposed to teaching, hey, when you rise to the top, you want a better grade? You bring 2 or 3 people with you. You bring 5 people with you. Like really teaching cooperation. We're taught this equation that says, work hard. If you work hard for long enough, then you'll be successful. And if you're successful for long enough, then you'll be happy. And we do it. We do just as we're told, and we work hard, and we get successful. You know, you're running $1 billion hedge fund. We get successful, and we go, well, hey, folks, I did what you told me to do, and here I am, not happy. Well, what the hell? What's wrong with this? And it's just the wrong equation. So unfortunately, these people have to run over, a lot of people on their way there. I appreciate that. Then they discover it and go, oh, that's not the way. And I wish more people would begin to teach it, that how about let's be happy and teach some tools to be happy. Emotional intelligence, emotional regulation. Even Harvard University came out with a study that said emotional intelligence is the number one predictor of success, not your STEM skills. I'm for STEM, I'm for all education, I'm for all of it. But Harvard's the pinnacle of education, and their research is saying emotional intelligence, that's what we need to be teaching. But we're not. So we need to teach the emotional intelligence skills. They are skills which can be practiced, just like shooting a basketball. You can practice them so that we can be happy right now. When we're happy right now, we are successful. And when we are successful, it's easy to do great work and to show up and to help people and make the planet better, like you were talking about before. Let's show up and help each other. We're just taught the wrong equation. So no, I don't approve of the activities of those that run over people on their way to success and then all of a sudden repent for it. And I recognize that it's just what we're teaching them to do.
So let me ask you like a parenting skill, because you told me you're a father. I'm a father as well, and we are kind of living in at least for me, I'm living in a place where we do have certain amount of money that we can provide very good education for our kids, and great, we do want to provide them a good education, but what that education is more academic driven, right? And what you talk about is emotional intelligence, and I don't see, like, when I don't want to force my kids to be all academic either. I want them to be have the grit in life, be able to show up and be the good person and find their own success. But if you're kind of living in somewhat kind of lukewarm environment where everybody is around you is like more or less on the wealthy side of things, and you tell them have grit, have hunger, make that money, or make that business succeed, or whatever you want to teach them to your kids, it's kind of hard when they're kind of in this environment where they're kind of comfortable, right? So what you need to build out in them is finding not the monetary success, it's the success that they define what they think is success. So as a parent, how do you think is a good way to teach our children to have that emotional intelligence, and also at the same time have that grit? Because the society that they're going to live in from now on is going to be a lot more vicious than what we were actually living through before, in my view, because of this automation, AI, and all these things. And a lot of jobs that we know right now is going to be, gone, and they have to find their own path. Finding their own path is more difficult than somebody telling you, just be a doctor, be a lawyer, etc., because those jobs are probably going to be automated away.
I think that's a really good point. And it's a scary world that we're moving into, and maybe just scary because it's going to be different. And you're right, the jobs we're even today training people for, we don't know if they're going to exist. A lot of it's going to be automated, which is why, to me, these emotional intelligence skills, which are also called resiliency skills, that's what's needed. Look, I learned about computers, I learned about tech, but nothing I learned back then applies to today. It's all so different. I've learned some of the new stuff, but I'm on the older side. I certainly haven't learned anything, everything, I should say. But what I have now are resiliency skills that I've developed. after learning them from amazing teachers. To be clear, I have my teachers too, so that whatever I'm faced with, I can simply ask, why is this happening for me? For, not to me, right? We go, why is this happening for me? Right? Most people say, why is this happening to me? Everything's going crazy. Why does this always happen to me? You'll get you have to ask your questions very carefully, because you'll get the answer to why is this happening to me if that's what you ask. But if you get why is this happening for me, you'll get the answer to that as well. And it gives you the answers that you need to learn and grow through whatever process you're going through. Resiliency skills are so much more important because we do not know what the planet is going to be like in 10, 20, 30 years. Because if you went back 30 years ago, no one would have imagined the planet as it is right now. You know, your videos on the cell phones, and people didn't picture that. You know, when I was in high school, using floppy disks, putting floppy disks in the computer to save the school report. You know, so how does that translate into being a parent? Again, we need to be very careful with words. Words are important. So my child cries and I say, it's okay to cry. What does it feel like? I never say, don't cry. I never say, don't be sad. I never say, don't be afraid. Because, look, you know, people say there's no reason to cry. There's no reason to be afraid. Hey, if I'm crying, there's obviously a reason. You might not like the reason, but there's a reason. If I'm afraid, there's a reason to be afraid. You might not like the reason, but there's an actual reason. So now we need to figure out, well, what are these experiences that I am dealing with? What does sadness feel like in this body? What does fear feel like in this body? And make these emotions safe. They're not negative emotions. They're emotions. There's joy, there's sadness. Like I wouldn't wish a life without sadness on anybody. That would be a miserable life not to experience sadness and the growth, the learning and growth that comes from it. It would be a miserable life not to experience fear, because that would mean you're always in your comfort zone. You're never moving into your courage zone. There's no learning and growth. There's no accomplishment. There's no celebrations of, hey, I did it. So first we need to teach acceptance of all emotions. If we weren't supposed to feel sadness, anger, and all these things, we wouldn't have them. You know, source, universe, God, whatever you want to call it, that this entity, whatever created us, wouldn't have given us these emotions to feel. So it's, what do you do with them once they are here? And how can you be kind to yourself when you're experiencing them? And the beauty of that is when you're kinder to yourself when you experience it, well, now I can be kinder to others. So when that person across from me, you know, when I'm at the yoga studio and a really pissed off person comes in because, you know, something happened, or maybe we did something wrong, or maybe they did something wrong, who knows? But I can hold space for their anger because I've learned to hold space for my anger. These aren't bad things. So that's a part of the emotional intelligence skill set, let's say. And it's a basis of self-love, which you mentioned before. Being kind to ourselves no matter what we're going through. Because that's what we all want to experience. Let's be honest. When do we feel our best? When we feel love, when we feel connection to another human being. So we can feel that with ourselves. Boom, success, done. And then we can share that success, love success, with, by the way, brings in more money, but then you're just happy when you get there. You can share that success with other people. And then you're not running over them. You're bringing them with you. Now that's a successful life.
Yeah, I totally agree. And all that resilience is probably the most important thing, because you're going to be faced with so many different types of setbacks in your life, especially now, because you're not just going on a regular path of going, working in a company and work your way through it. You have to find your own path. And if you don't have that resilience, you're not going to be able to, plow through the negativities that comes your way throughout life. Now, right now, as we're still on the topic of parenting and resilience, and we do have society coming at us as well, thinking that this is the success that you need to have. You have not just society, we're all on Instagram and social media, and have all these people showing, photos of their Lamborghinis and beautiful life, on the boat and traveling and stuff like that. Maybe traveling not right now, but we have all these people showing off, and it's all fake. It's all fake. I mean, maybe it's not really their car. Maybe it's not their Lamborghini, or maybe it's not even their boat, but everybody kind of looks at this and say, oh, that I don't have that and I need that. But that's not, as we're talking about this topic, that is not really success. So how do we care for our children to say that this is all fake? This is not really what success means. I mean, and you need to have them to have that resilience to push away those contents, push away society telling us that monetary success is what you need to go for. Because we know it, because maybe we went through life difficulties and found out that maybe monetary success was not the thing that made us happy. But for children, they don't know that yet.
So here's what I do. Now, I can tell you in 10 years if it worked. He's 6 years old now. But when I walk him to school, and I've been doing this since he was in preschool, I don't say pay attention. I don't say work hard. I don't say any of those things. I say, go practice kindness to yourself and to your classmates. That's how I send them off, because I believe kindness is a much more important skill than the other skills. I believe that's what we need to practice. And as parents, we need to model it. So sometimes I even think, if I'm doing one thing or another thing, I go, okay, well, what would I want my son to be doing in this situation? And then I do that because I want to model it. When I talk to myself in the mirror, I do it in front of him. I look myself in the mirror and say, hey, Jonathan, you did a great job today. Or if it's in the morning, hey, good morning, Jonathan. You look great. I love you. This is going to be a great day today. Let's see who we can help today. And I ask the questions, how can I honor my values today? I ask that question every day. How can I honor my values today? And I model it in front of him. So hopefully he begins to learn what's important. I model kindness. We're in the store. I model. Let them go in front. We're in no rush. He spills something or breaks something. I say, no big deal. We'll get another one if it's important. Or, it's gone. No big deal. And he might cry. And I say, hey, it's okay to cry. Totally okay. You want a hug? I'm here for you. You want to be where you are? That's okay too. I'll be here when you're ready for a hug. Because sometimes you're like, nah, right? So we have to honor. That's fine. You can be like that. That's great. Set your boundaries. So I think the best thing we can do is model. So if we practice kindness towards ourselves and kindness towards others, they will witness that. And they do it in general. Most children end up doing what their parents do, right? If you want to talk about the political spectrum, not 100%, but here in the United States, most right-leaning people were children of right-leaning parents, and most left-leaning people were children of left-leaning parents. Occasionally, you find a crossover. I've met people that crossed over both ways. But most of us do what our parents did, right? We speak our languages because our parents spoke them. So let's speak the language of emotional intelligence. Instead of testing them on their math tables, or maybe in addition to testing them on their math tables, test them on, hey, when you're sad, what does that feel like for you? What do you feel in your chest, in your stomach, in your throat? Practice those skills with them. Make them as important as math, science, technology, all of it. And here's another one. This is important. Ask forgiveness when you mess up. My son, the other day, he dropped a magnet into one of the portable air filters. They have the filters to clean the air so you can breathe better. And it was at night, and I was trying to get him to brush his teeth. And he wasn't brushing his teeth. So I was already kind of frustrated because it's late and it's time to brush teeth. And then he did that. And I got upset because, first of all, it wasn't one of his magnets. It was for something specific that I needed. So it's like, that was frustrating. It had just gotten delivered from Amazon and already it's gone. So I got a little frustrated. I didn't yell, but I was not the kindest. And the next day, I went to him. I said, do you remember yesterday when the magnet fell and I got a little upset? He goes, yeah. I said, I'm sorry. And what I should have said was, no big deal. I can get another magnet. I can get another ear filter. I mean, in the end, I took it apart and got the magnet out, so it really was no big deal. And I said, I should have just started with no big deal, and I'm sorry. And he just smiled. I think if we can begin to model those activities, that will have a great impact on them.
Yeah, the loving part, I feel like I can do that because I love them anyway. And, being kind to them, I try to be kind to them as much as possible. But at the same time, and this goes for self-love as well, to yourself, but you can love and you could feel who you want to be, and let's say we kind of get that. But where does the discipline comes in? Because, yes, you can love your feelings, and if you love yourself for being lazy, then you can still be lazy, and it's okay to be lazy. But where does the discipline come from? And this is, also about, parenting as well. It's also about ourselves as well. When does discipline come into the picture?
Well, I'm going to answer, because there are really two parts of that question, because I want to address the loving yourself when you're lazy. Usually when we're lazy, it's because we don't love ourselves, because we're not accepting of where we are. And that's a way to avoid it. And when we give ourselves some slack and are kind to ourselves, we are more likely to show up and do the work. And of course, laziness needs to be identified. So then it gets amplified, like, well, taking a nap is lazy. Well, no, taking a nap might be what you need to recharge so that you can connect more lovingly with your family, which will move into your work life as well. If you're happy with your family, you're going to do better at work as well. But how do we teach that to children? I will say, as a fairly new parent, I don't really have the answer, but I have an instinct. But it's not an easy line. When I am trying to have him do something, sometimes I will pause and I'll go, do I want him to do this so I have the control and he's listening to me? Because when I tell him to do something and I want to set these boundaries, I want him to listen to me. It's important. And those boundaries of listening to other people, it's an important skill too. But I ask, is it so I have control, or is it so it makes him a better person? Because sometimes he'll be doing something really creative and amazing. I'll just want him to be doing something else. So I have to go, okay, is it necessary to control his behavior right now? And if it is, I will control his behavior. Nope, not the time for this. We got to go now. Let's go. You can cry. You can be pissed off at me. We're going. Or, if it's work that needs to be done. Although he's sick, so I don't run into too much of that right now, to be honest with you. And sometimes I pause and go, no, this is just me wanting to control the situation. And he's 6 and he's doing great. He's doing just what a 6-year-old should be doing. And he's being really creative. I mean, sometimes I have to pick between disciplining him and laughing, because what he's doing is so creative and funny. It's like, yeah, you got to give him props for that. So here, after talking it out with you, here's what I think. If you practice self-compassion towards yourself, you are more connected with your intuition, that gut feeling, not the brain here in the head, but the brain in the gut, right? That brain has your real answers. And when you check in with that brain, it gives you the right answer. You will know exactly what to do. We've shut ourselves off from our intuition by being told, follow instructions, right? Follow the instructions of teachers, and then follow the instructions of your bosses, and make more money, get a better title so that you can be happy someday in the future. And of course, that future doesn't come for many people. If we can begin to pull back that programming that we've had and reprogram ourselves for kindness to ourselves, which reignites our intuition, our own internal knowing and wisdom, which is always, 100% always right. You'll know exactly how to parent in any given moment.
And why do you say that the intuition is always right? Because sometimes it can be wrong. I don't know. Maybe there's some instinct in you that maybe you're not a really good person, and your intuition is not really the right way to act. I mean, what do you think about that?
The intuition is not telling you you're not a good person. Look, in my experience, I'll also say, I'm not sharing the truth. I'm sharing my truth. Talk to me in a year, maybe my truth will be different. But this is my experience up to now. Now, sometimes we get a message from our intuition, and our brain comes up and then analyzes it. It says, oh, wait, doesn't mean this, doesn't mean this. Whoa, but no, that's not what I was taught. In my experience, and as I look back on life, and before I really knew about intuition, and when it was just, this feeling in the gut, whenever I didn't follow that gut feeling, it was not for my benefit. And I can look back to before I knew about self-love, before I knew any of it, when I was doing the work hard, be successful, and I had a gut feeling, and my head said, no, that's not what you were taught. Get the money, pay the rent. That's what you're taught. Go get the money now, pay the rent. It did not serve me long term. It may have served me short term. Didn't serve me long term. I had stopped honoring my values. I began honoring other people's values. And to sidetrack it a little bit, a life lived honoring your values is a fulfilling life. You will love it. There'll be sadness, but a life lived honoring your values is a fulfilling life. A life lived not honoring your values is an unfulfilling life. Period. And most of us, many of us, are living other people's values. The values of parents, teachers, marketers, people that put on the commercials, the magazines, all of that. And we need to get back to our values. Our intuition knows what our values are. When we can reconnect to it and not second guess it, the second guessing is when we get into trouble. But if we can get rid of the second guessing, in my experience, the intuition is never wrong. Whenever I've followed it, it's been right. Whenever I've not followed it, I've paid the consequences. And I will be fully honest with you. Even today, sometimes what my intuition tells me is still too scary for me to do. And I don't do what it tells me to do. And I pay the price. And eventually I will do it, because eventually I learn. It doesn't take me as long. It doesn't take me years to figure it out. Now I go, okay, fine, I'll just do it. And then I do it, and boom, Okay, we get we get what we need. I believe it's always right. What I would say to you and anyone else is test out the theory. Scientifically test it out. Listen to your intuition, do what it says, and then you tell me yes or no, it worked or it didn't work. But experiment. You got to treat this life like an experiment. In if what you've been doing is not fully working for you, try another experiment and see if that works. So this is an experiment that I offer.
Yeah, a lot of times choosing the path of your intuition, it is scary because it might even lead you down to less money or less whatever you think of what success is, pre deciding what you're going to do. And I've experienced this too, because when I was in the hedge fund industry and I thought, this is not working out for me, I'm super unhappy, I quit. Obviously my pay goes down massively, right? And that I have to suffer the consequences, but at the same time, it allowed me to be a better person, a nicer father, a nicer, a person in general. I'm very happy in that sense, and I feel more peaceful about myself. But there's a lot of people who are really scared to go down that path because you lose the options, right? I mean, having money is you defined it in the beginning as well, but having money is an option to give to your family, to give to yourself, to do many things in life. And you're going to forfeit that for your own happiness, right? It's almost like a selfish decision in some ways. So a lot of people, especially people with family, are very scared to go down that path because of that, of the setup that they already created right now, and just kind of going 180 and say, I'm just going to pursue my happiness because I want to be a nicer person. But I'm sorry, you're going to lose quite a lot of optionality in life. I mean, what do you have to say to that?
Well, as a parent, what do we want for our kids? Do we want our children to be happy, right? Or do we want them to make sure that they have the most money, happy or not? Right? I want my son to be happy. That's it. So I spoke before about modeling. We have to model that. We need to teach the skills to increase joy, happiness, bliss in our lives, which again is inclusive of pain and sadness and sorrow. Okay, that's all a part of joy. Okay, if you think there's no pain in life, then that's just a different conversation, right? So I don't want you to think that I don't mean that exists. I don't want my child to have $1 billion and be miserable. I want to have $1 billion and be happy and bring people up with him. And for many, the $1 billion is easier to get than the happiness. So here's the thing. If you build your business or whatever it is you're building, your career, your business, unhappy, when you get there, when you achieve whatever it is you want to achieve, you'll still be unhappy. And this is true. That's the midlife crisis. We got there. I got what I wanted, and I am unhappy. If you build it while you are happy, once you're there, you'll be happy. So you've learned some of these happiness skills. You're a better father because of it. Well, I mean, for me, you can choose your definitions, but I think being a kinder father and a better father is way more important than, even if you're not doing any traveling. I'd rather be a better father and do no traveling than travel the world and be an asshole to my child. That's me. You can pick what you want, but that's me, my definition of success. But once we have these happiness skills, well, now my guess is you could go back and build your hedge fund and have the $1 billion again, but just do it from a different place. Do it from today's me, right? Who I am today, and build from here, and make sure that as you climb that ladder or increase the zeros or whatever it is you're measuring, you're bringing this happiness along with you. And you're setting the boundaries that this is not going to take away from your family life. That instead of bringing the values of creating solely more money into your life, you're going to bring the values of living this amazing life, which you are now modeling for your children. You're going to bring these values of an amazing life into the business and into the money. Now it's all working together. Now you're going to do some great things with that money, and you're going to help a lot of people.
Yeah, I love that. Just
Does
go.
that land with you?
That totally lands with me. I mean, that is exactly what I think everybody should do, and I really get that, because if you're starting from a different value sets, you could do the whole hedge fund thing or whatever business that you're creating all over again, because you've already done it before. But it's better to start fresh with a very different value sets and then doing that again and see how that really makes you feel. Because then I'm sure that people will be in a much more successful mindset than before. Being a better person, being a better father, being a better mother, being a better entrepreneur, being a better hedge fund manager, whatever they are. And I really value that insight, and I thank you so much.
Yeah, and then like you spoke about the people that would mow over people on their way to the top. The difference is when you build it from this state of mind, you're taking them all. You're not mowing anybody down. You're taking them all up with you. Like these companies, and I forget the names of them, but that company where it's a credit card processing, where the CEO, cut his salary and made sure everybody had a base salary. I think at the time it was like $70,000, which is what research said was the borderline. Like under 70, that's where happiness is difficult. But above 70,000, then there's no difference between 70,000 and 70 million. He brought everybody up with him. There was another company I read about where he really treats everybody as a family member. He will not fire anybody. If there's a problem person, right? That a lot of people say, if there's a problem person, you got to get rid of them for them and for you. Now, if someone goes, he'll let them go. But if there's a problem, he treats them as a brother, a sister, a child, and says, no, you can't fire a child. Your child is your child forever. He goes, I'm going to work with you until you get it. Until you get the skills right, I'm here for you because we are family. And it's just, another guy, he calls it heart count. It's not head count. It's heart count. That's the people he employs. Their hearts, their people. So it's been proven when you do it from this space, you can still build something huge and amazing and have a lot of money. It's just you're bringing everybody up with you. And isn't that a better legacy to have than mowing over people?
That's totally so true. And I think this is the great way to, end our conversation, because there was so much insight in there. And I feel like a lot of people who are even thinking about, am I coming from a wrong value set in life? Do I need to change, take a little bit of a step back from my career and rethink what I need to do because I want to be a better person? This is really impactful. A lot of things that you say, I believe they'll reach out to a lot of people's hearts. And I really want to thank you for your valuable time and your insights.
I loved it. Thank you so much for having me here. I really enjoyed being here. Thank you.
Hi, this is your host Takatoshi Shibayama. Thank you for listening all the way to the end. Now, if you enjoyed or disliked the show, please let me know by writing in the comment section. The only way I can improve or add value to you is through your voices. If there are any topics that you would like me to pick up, please also let me know in the comments. I'd love to start chatting with you all. And if you would like to continue watching the show, please subscribe. Thank you.